But he has been here. Today's final stage features climbing from the start, with 4 second category mountains spread over the first 150 kilometres. Then the longest climb of the whole race, the 21-kilometre grind up the Alto de Aitana.
Luis Leon Sanchez from Astana and Rudy Mollard from Cofidis have the lead of the stage 20, the big finale of the Vuelta, and they are heading onto the opening kilometres of the final climb of this 3-week stage race. But it's a monster, the Aitana, 21 kilometres in length. It starts off fairly gently and then it kicks up in the opening few kilometres to 13%. Then it levels off a little, and after that, though, it is unrelenting 7, 8, 9% gradients all the way up the ridge towards the finish line. So much more like an alpine kind of long-form climb that Chris Froome, Nairo Quintana and Alberto Contador will be familiar with from their Tour de France participation. And this is the big GC move of the day so far, and it's come from Orica Bike Exchange. Damien Howson piloting Esteban Chaves towards a very interesting situation here, David. He's got himself a healthy little advantage onto the lower slopes of this climb, which they'll be tackling fairly soon. So really good move and well executed.
Yeah, approaching 2.5 minutes now. Well, it's just gone down a little bit there, which is an amazing ride. And he's been very lucky, I think. Well, not lucky. It must have been a strategy to have Howson there waiting, but he caught him at the perfect moment, just a couple of Ks into the climb. So Chaves attacked on that, did the whole climb solo, got down, had Howson, and Howson's doing a wonderful job now. He's been on the front for a significant amount of time, but he can't have much left in him, and he's going to try, no doubt, and get Chaves as far into this climb as possible.
Chaves offering encouragement to Damien Howson.
Yeah, he really is piloting him. Yeah. It's what you do. You have to motivate your teammates sometimes when in that situation. You just have to ask them for a bit longer, tell them, just encourage them to do it, or maybe tell them, give them an objective, say, just get me to this section, get me 2 more kilometres up here, and then I'll take it. So it's not often we get to see or hear that, but it does happen quite a lot. Yes, there, and it's interesting that still that time gap between those 2 leaders and these 2 here is unchanging. It's remained between 140, 150 for about 30 or 40 kilometres now, no matter what happens behind. The biggest difference we're seeing on the road is this move. This is what's moving, doing the biggest, creating the most damage at the moment. And you can see that with Trofimov in the front for Tinkoff leading the red jersey group, the red and white jersey group, he has eaten into it a bit, but he's going to blow up again soon as well. He can't keep going for that long, and it's Howson who's really doing the ride at the moment. I think it might be the end of the road, literally, for Damien Howson fairly soon, as they were heading towards those steep slopes within the first couple of kilometres of this 21-kilometre climb. Remember, 16.3 kilometres relates to Luis Leon Sanchez and Rudy Mollard, not this battle further back down the road. They've got a few kilometres advantage over this group of leaders. There you can see 1 minute 11 seconds separating Alberto Contador and Chaves, and currently he's got 1 minute 43 seconds. So he's really doing the job, and this would have been their strategy in the meeting this morning, but it's working perfectly.
Howson's still on the front, still working for Esteban Chaves, who is a rider, you understand. Ooh. From what happened there.
Just clipped his wheel as Howson just got out the saddle. You sometimes launch your bike goes slightly back, and I think Chaves was so close to it they just got caught up, which would have been a disaster.
That wouldn't have been great. Let's just watch this again. Just a touch of the tyre.
Stands up and the bike just goes slightly back, and because Chaves is riding so close to him, he just got caught up slightly. But he was never in risk, I think. There you go, Howson's actually come to a standstill. Wow.
Yep.
He's unclipped. He's actually unclipped.
Well, let's hope he gets back on and completes the Vuelta. That was a great job he did there. Well, for a man who does, just to complete that thought, I was going to say, he does inspire great loyalty amongst those riders. Sometimes riders sort of trot that out because it's the party line, but you do sense there's a genuine affection, and they will bury themselves for Esteban Chaves in that team.
I think that whole team, the team as a whole, seems to have that sort of attitude where they would ride to the point of unclipping for each other, and that's one of the only times I've ever seen that happen. It's you can just see he's actually gone so beyond himself to help Chaves. These come to an actual standstill.
For those of you of a squeamish nature, look away now. That's what pain on stage 20 of a Grand Tour feels like for a domestique. Now over to you to deliver. We've lost the time gaps temporarily, so we don't know what the situation, but you could see Chavez there looking over as the road unfolds and winds around this climb to see if he could actually spot Alberto Contador and Yuri Trofimov leading the chase up the road to him. But he is isolated, a lone figure now, in between the GC race and the breakaway. And we did make the assumption earlier on, David, that this was going to be a stage 4, a breakaway. I'm not totally sure we can be that certain anymore. No,
that we're seeing for the first time now that gap coming down to those two leaders. I mean, if this is right, if it's sometimes we get mixed reports, but 54 seconds. So either they're suddenly slowing down at the front, or they've sped up behind. And I think it's actually probably a combination of the both.
Rudy Mollard and Luis Leon Sanchez, who amazingly has never won a stage of the Vuelta. And they are in the front of the race. Long way to go, though. They've only just broached 15 kilometres to go of this brutally long climb, the big showpiece finale of Aitana. Through 9 kilometres, Luis Leon Sanchez goes. That's all that remains for him. He has dropped Rudy Mollard, and he is the lone leader of the race. Further back down the road, some 5 minutes though, the red jersey of Nairo Quintana is in a group that is being very, very active, and the reason for that is that Simon Yates now, for the 3rd time, has just launched a little bit of attack. This is a situation up the road though, and that's Rudy Mollard, and he is being chased down by Valerio Conti, also from that breakaway. So Mollard is 2nd on the road, but not for much longer. One senses the Lampre Merida man, the winner of stage 13, will be right on his wheel and roaring past him, trying to track down Luis Leon Sanchez. Very strong ride from Conti. And a very strong ride from Luis Leon Sanchez as well to have taken that gap out. And if you look at, he's actually holding Chavez now at 3:46, 3:47. Chavez isn't eating into it as much as he did before, but that was a massive effort he's done to open up that gap to the red jersey group, and now it's more a case of hanging on to the top rather than eating into it anymore. But with Simon Yates behind, looking like he has the strength of 10 men, and was a little bit frustrated that 2nd time. But what is interesting is Trofimov had been blown out of that group that was leading, so Movistar now to take control. There's Marina Moser for Cannondale Drapac in 2nd position, whose job will be to look after Talansky and shut any moves down from Simon Yates. Chris Froome's right towards the rear end of that line of favourites. He's still got Leopold Koenig alongside him to hand him water bottles if needed. Marina Moser sitting in 2nd place, and Andrew Talansky in about 5th or 6th. Remember, Talansky's defending 20 seconds from Simon Yates. That's Mollard being dropped down into 3rd position on the road now as the motorbike soars ahead to Valerio Conti. Still no sign, no further up the road, of Luis Leon Sanchez, who is gone around those corners. And is he visible around that corner? No. So Conti's got a real battle on his hands still to bridge across those 24 seconds as we return to the group of favourites. And once again, spot Chris Froome in the white jersey, the rider everyone anticipated to really light things up today and try and do the improbable, taking back 1 minute and 11 seconds on Nairo Quintana, 1 minute 21 seconds, I should say. Well, so far, it doesn't look like Froome is in a position to do anything about it. I think this is the big attack now from Alberto Contador. He's got to do something about Esteban Chavez, and he's got to try and reclaim 3rd position in the general classification. Simon Yates is straight onto his wheel, and Talansky glued to the wheel of Yates, the man he has decided to mark. Still Quintana bides his time, and still Froome, well, he's there, but he's not towards the front, and he doesn't look like a man who's just about to attack. No, he doesn't, and Valverde is there, so he must have just been dropping back for something, so he looked quite strong when he was moving back up. But again, now it's a situation of Alberto Contador. He's going to have to go himself and commit. You have to make a decision at some point, which would be perfect for Simon Yates, because he can then just sit in his wheel and annoy him, if you like. But that will then put everyone in the red so much, because obviously if Simon Yates is feeling this good, it's attacked 3 times already. There's a potential. All he has to do is attack with 2Ks to go, and if he's feeling that strong, he could possibly take 20 seconds in 2Ks. It's a very hard final part to this climb. As we go back to Valerio Conti, who's being caught, and he's being passed by Matthias Frank, who brings Darwin Atapuma with him. So Frank passes another stage winner on this year's Vuelta, but Frank is having the tour of his life, make no doubt about that. And we had the familiar gangly figure of Robert Hessling behind out the saddle, churning that gear. There he is. See, there he is in the yellow.
So, you can see how Darren Aptapuma, that looks like looking like a pure Colombian climber there, just dancing on the pedals, making it look so much easier than everybody else.
Well, that would be something as well for Aptapuma to take a stage win, having had a spell in the red leaders jersey that is now being worn, and being worn brilliantly, you have to say, by Nairo Quintana. He has an aura around him on this race, Quintana, increasingly so. Despite his losses on the time trial yesterday, on the climbs, he has looked pretty impregnable. Chris Froome hasn't really attacked him yet to any great effect, and we're in stage 20.
23 seconds, so Aptapuma now is making inroads into that gap to Luis Leon Sanchez. Matheus Frank is still looking good there, just sitting at his pace. As we know, this is one of the steepest sections. They pulled the team car out, so it's that really is coming down now.
Oh, is he tying up a little? He is a big man, isn't he, Luis Leon Sanchez, and incredibly versatile. You saw him earlier on as well, contesting bunch sprints from reduced groups as well. He can do so much. Good time trialist as well.
He really is your classic all-rounder, and especially in the breakaways, he's tactically very astute. That last stage he won in the 2012 Tour de France, I think it was in a group with Sagan, and he attacked Sagan when he was eating, which is probably about the best tactic you can have, to be honest with.
Over 2 minutes Esteban Chaves has over Contador, so it still hasn't really ignited behind. Those fireworks haven't happened in that GC group, and this is all at the moment to Esteban Chaves' advantage as he just time trials his way up. Tell you what, David, don't rule out Pierre Latour, the rider from AG2 La Mondiale, who's trying to get across to the wheel of Matheus Frank. Now he's in a breakaway trying to hunt down a stage win, and he can climb as well. So it's a powerful group getting across step by step, bit by bit, to Luis Leon Sanchez, who for now, at this point on the climb with 5.3 to go, looks like he's beginning to hurt.
Now this group is going to, I'm sure that we have to see an attack. The moment they go onto that smaller road, as we've seen as they're coming up here, they go through the military gates, and it's just up here. I'd be very surprised if we didn't see a big move from somebody, perhaps even from Alberto Contador, because if he wants to go and try and close that down and defend his podium place, then he's going to have to go. It'll be just over 6 kilometres from the finish. He can take that to the line, or similarly from Simon Yates. And why not Chris Froome? I mean, that would be great.
Well, he's beginning to get to the breakaway now, Esteban Chaves, and he goes past Kenny Elissonde, who, well, Elissonde needs to hang on to 5th place if he wants to be king of the mountains, but that's looking a little bit less likely now. I think there are far too many riders ahead of him on the road, and he's beginning to be passed by the GC race as well.
And interesting to see, we have Nairo Quintana's dropped back.
Yeah, I noticed that.
And he's gone into Chris Froome, so he's anticipating an attack.
Exactly.
So he just wants to be there when it happens, doesn't want to be caught out.
Does Chris Froome look to you like a rider who can attack? Kilometres are beginning to trickle through his fingers now. The opportunities beginning to pass, and every kilometre that goes without an attack is another sense that it's just too much.
Also interesting to see Simon Yates just sitting on Talansky's wheel now. So I think he's just going to sit there and wait until he sees him in difficulty and then attack him. In the past it's been he's trying to catch him out. Now I think he's just going to sit there and get a judge of how he's going.
Well, one last big effort for his team leader here by Alejandro Valverde, so often a big GC player in his own right. In the green jersey now, but all in for the man in red. Nairo Quintana closing in now within kilometres, you have to say, of his 2nd Grand Tour victory. And so far, nobody today has threatened him remotely. Esteban Chaves is in a lone battle against the clock and against Alberto Contador, and a battle at the moment that he's winning. He has over 2 minutes advantage to Alberto Contador, but Luis Leon Sanchez, who is looking so strong on his own at the front of the race, is about to be met and passed, you sense, by Darwin Aptapuma from BMC. But he's not the only player, because Pierre Latour, bobbing from side to side, the Frenchman from AG2 La Mondiale, hasn't given up either, and nor too has Matheus Frank. Luis Leon Sanchez will hold on to that wheel for as long as he possibly can, and that might be some time, knowing him. Meanwhile, further back down the road, Gianluca Brambilla is on the wheel of Leopold Koenig. I'm looking for the white jersey of Chris Froome. It's further back, but Koenig is setting a very, very high pace here, and Contador has latched straight onto that as those three go a little bit clear, and Quintana now goes past Alejandro Valverde, who has done his bit, and he looks over his left shoulder to see what the white jersey of Chris Froome is doing, and at the moment the answer is going backwards.
Well, he's just sitting there, he's just trying to get a run up on him, but that was interesting watching Nairo Quintana do that. He was almost taunting him, like, go on then, I'm ready, let's go. And it's so we're getting an indication of how strong Nairo Quintana is, and he's almost playing games that we've seen Chris Froome play with him in the past. So this is, but Leopold Koenig's doing a a storming ride here. Alberto Contador can't even hold his wheel, and Alberto Contador needs to hold his wheel because that could be his ride up to back onto the podium if he can do it. But let's see, we've now got the three strongest are, and Luis Leon Sanchez has now finally exploded. He tried to stay with Darwin Atapuma.
Oh, yeah, yet another bit of unnecessary involvement with the spectator as well. Now, here's an interesting player, just dropping back from the breakaway group. That's David Lopez, who was in the big breakaway of the day, and Chris Froome goes across to him. Now, Quintana saw that coming, and he's right on the wheel of Chris Froome. That's a big acceleration, the first big acceleration we've seen from Froome. He spotted David Lopez there, and pretty soon he's going to be joining his teammate up the road. But Quintana, absolutely where he wants him.
Nairo Quintana's got him completely under control for the moment. So this is not a situation that Chris Froome is very used to. It's normally it's the other way around.
Here we go. Here we go. The mind games begin between these two again, but this time it is all stacked in Nairo Quintana's favour. Last time we saw them playing these kind of games with 5 kilometres to go, Chris Froome was the boss. But that has all turned around now. Deep into the Vuelta, stage 20. Quintana looks absolutely imperious here. Lopez, what impetus can he offer Chris Froome now? What can he do for him?
You're right, Darwin Atapuma is not distancing them. Although he's looked good, you have to wonder maybe whether he's... I mean, Pierre Latour's style is definitely laboured, but it's effective.
That's how he rides, isn't
it?
And Matthias Frank. So that powerful pairing haven't given up on Atapuma yet. And Atapuma hasn't given up on himself, so all to play for, and they go through 2.6 kilometres to go. That's the gap. It's just agonisingly hard, though, for Matthias Frank and Pierre Latour to close. Atapuma riding a very, very high cadence, very small gear, just spinning his legs. But to some effect at the moment, and I don't think they're holding much back, Frank and Latour, but they still haven't got to the Colombian. There's Kenny Elissonde dropping further out of contention in the King of the Mountains competition. I think now we can say that Omar Fraile, the man who won the King of the Mountains jersey last year, will be winning it again this year as Elissonde drops away. Esteban Chavez, according to the timings coming off the road, is still in a podium place by 42 seconds. That's right at the front. Frank, who's done a lot of the work to bring them across to Darwin Atapuma, sets up Pierre Latour to go over the top. And the Frenchman now, for the first time, has the front of the race.
He is, and he's riding a clever race, but Darwin Atapuma is now looking good. He's sitting there just marking him, but they seem very, very well matched as Darwin Atapuma goes again. But Pierre Latour is not letting this go. As difficult as he makes it look, he is clearly one of the strongest.
Well, I tell you what, one of his best results, Pierre Latour, came this year, in fact, in the Tour de Suisse, when he finished third on a stage behind, guess who? Warren Barguil and Darwin Atapuma. So can he turn the tables on the Colombian on this stage of a grand tour? It would be by far the biggest achievement in his young career. He's 22 years of age, is the Frenchman. Big prospect, though.
Look at this. This is just keep attacking each other. It's incredible to think they can do this after the day they've had and this penultimate day of the Vuelta, and they're just up there. I mean, everybody, you can see that whole break has been destroyed, and for a 22-year-old Frenchman, it's quite a ride.
Well, the team management have said that they want to look after him and foster his future, just as they did with Romain Bardet, who is only just coming into his best years, one feels now, and may well win a Grand Tour in years to come, Romain Bardet. But how about this for a prospect? Latour attacks Atapuma again, and just like the Colombian further down the road engaged in the GC battle with Chris Froome, Atapuma does a Quintana and just latches straight on to the back wheel of the Frenchman, who looks over his left shoulder, goes again. Can Atapuma respond this time?
And now Chris Froome is going to try again, but I mean, look at Nairo Quintana. He looks completely within himself.
He does indeed. Reset the race. You are no longer looking at Pierre Latour and Darwin Atapuma. You're looking at the first and second riders in the general classification, Nairo Quintana and Chris Froome. And Froome, well, it's not for want of trying. This was a hugely ambitious ask today. The time trial, the brilliant time trial victory yesterday for Chris Froome gave him perhaps the belief, and certainly the wider cycling world, that the impossible might just become possible. And still, with just a couple of kilometres remaining, Froome tries again to crack the Colombian, and still Nairo Quintana imperiously, almost effortlessly, shuts the door on him. And surely now, at some point, Chris Froome will have to acknowledge it's not going to happen.
Pierre Latour goes again, puts him in the big ring. So he needs to keep this moving, because as I said, he doesn't want to have Fellini there. Fellini's objective, that's the rider we see behind, the third rider in the road, is to latch on in the last 500 metres to then beat them in the sprint. So he'll be trying to pace that as much as possible. Darwin Atapuma has obviously decided that he can beat Pierre Latour in the sprint, hence why he's not attacking. He's letting Pierre Latour do all the work, and he goes again. But look at Fellini behind, just trying to pace it. He's just got to peg it on, because he can sprint better than these two riders.
I think Atapuma might be just waiting for his moment as well, just like these two are. Further back down the road, isolated from the rest of the general classification race. They're nowhere to be seen. Look down the road and you can barely glimpse Alberto Contador and the rest of them. These two have risen to the top in a Grand Tour once again. They're by far the best in this particular race, and they are locked together side by side. Just 22 years of age, Pierre Latour, and in rarefied heights, whereas Darwin Atapuma has been here already in his career in big races, and Atapuma does what Atapuma, I guess, had to do, and we just caught a glimpse of him going around there, and I think that might have cracked Pierre Latour, as Luis Leon Sanchez is swept up by Chris Froome and Nairo Quintana, and Atapuma, sure enough, has broken the Frenchman and will take victory on the climb of Aitana. It's going to be Darwin Atapuma, the former leader of this edition of the Vuelta, wore the red jersey with great pride, as Pierre Latour just does battle and hasn't given up. There's another barriered section, and the road kicks up significantly towards the finishing line, right up here at altitude, alongside this military installation and the telegraph masks. And Latour is closing the gap once again to Atapuma. Can he get on terms, and can he get round him, as we return slightly frustratingly to this phony war between Nairo Quintana? This is what we want to see at the moment, the battle for the stage win. So Latour has come back on Atapuma, and that will sting for Darwin Atapuma.
He's like a monster, Latour. The amount of attacks he's done and getting it back on terms, and he keeps looking at Atapuma and I can't call this in the slightest.
Well, you wouldn't begrudge either of these riders the stage win, but I think your heart might say at this moment, Pierre Latour, go on, do it. Right to this finishing line. I think he's cracked Darwin Atapuma. Atapuma concedes defeat, acknowledges that he's beaten by a better man on the day. Pierre Latour has just announced himself on the grandest stage of all. He takes a win on a Grand Tour at the Vuelta, winning stage 20. These two, it's almost like they've gone out for a coffee ride together at this point.
It does look like the fastest coffee ride of a mountain in history. But
Fabio Fellini crosses the line. Sorry, David, in third place.
As it goes again. So it's...
Well, this is just a moral victory, if you like. Can he beat Nairo Quintana to the finishing line up here? He's not going to make any impact in the general classification. Chris Froome is riding solidly into another second place on the Vuelta, but he wants to score at least a little moral victory over Nairo Quintana if he can. Those two riders pass under the Flamme Rouge. They have one more kilometre of racing, but for Pierre Latour, the race is over and the future is only just becoming evident. Esteban Chavez, though, crosses the line. Let's start the clock going. He's got 1 minute and 11 seconds, has Alberto Contador, to get to the finishing line. Otherwise, he is going to concede third place to the man you've just seen across the line, Esteban Chavez.
This is Chris Froome at his best. He's still going to race for the position. He still wants to beat Nairo Quintana on the line.
Well, they are. Who's going to get this, David? Prediction?
I'm going to go Chris Froome, because I just don't think he's going to let that go.
No. You suspect that Quintana knows that as well. Is Quintana going to attack round the bend? There he is. And Chris Froome has to, much like Darwin Atapuma, concede defeat. And Quintana scores an appropriate victory, and he seals the Vuelta. And Chris Froome applauds him warmly. So 2 years after taking his maiden Grand Tour victory in 2014 on the Giro, Nairo Quintana in 2016 takes the Vuelta a España, but this time beats Chris Froome into second place. Now, as Alberto Contador rears up towards the line, he knows that it's not going to be enough. Esteban Chavez has taken third place by 10, 11, around about 12 seconds from Alberto Contador, who did himself great credit by battling all the way to the finishing line as well.
Watching him all the way to the line was the man who'd taken him on and beaten him at his own attacking game. An excellent day for Colombia fell only marginally short of sensational when Darwin Atapuma apparently raced for the wrong line on the basis of bad information from his team car, but it was a fantastic effort by Pierre Latour regardless. No matter where the finish line was, Chris Froome was never going to shake Nairo Quintana today, a fact he acknowledged as he came across the line. So here's the result: Latour from Atapuma with Fabio Fellini third, which was significant for the points competition. Then came the remains of the break before the first of the favourites, Esteban Chavez at 3:17. Quintana took 2 seconds from Froome on the line. Alberto Contador lost 1:24 to Chavez, having led by 1:11 this morning. Andrew Talansky added 30 seconds to his lead over Simon Yates, but Yates had done a bigger job today for his team leader.
And I guess you had a vital role breaking the rhythm of the Contador group.
Yeah, he had one teammate drop back after a little bit, and he was really the only guy who was riding. So yeah, I tried to make my best to mix it up there, and managed to do that a few times. Spent my own legs a bit there doing that, so I wasn't really possible to move up and pass Talansky again, but that doesn't matter.
Today is a beautiful stage. All my life I dream for do one epic stage like today, and do with this team is unbelievable. Thank you very much, all guys, especially Damien Hawson. And I'm really happy, I'm really proud. I think 5 big tours in my life, and 3 of that I'm stay with the first guy, so the future is really nice for Orica by Exchange.
Bueno, es verdad que es deporte de competición y lo que se espera es ganar, pero también hay que disfrutar. Yo disfrutar una carrera. Cuando estaba en la línea de salida de la vuelta sabían las condiciones en las que venía. Yo he hecho pues lo mejor que he podido. Al final no he podido hacer podio, al final no he podido ganar. Bueno, las cosas así es el deporte.
Alberto, ¿puedes volver a la vuelta para ganar?
Al Tour.
Sí.
Al Tour.
Gracias.
Latour, meanwhile, was looking no further than his brilliant debut Vuelta, the 12th man in this race, amazingly, to claim a first Grand Tour stage win. Now, Fabio Felline's third place on the stage was enough for him to take the lead in the points competition. He leads by 3 from Nairo Quintana, who won't be interested in racing him for the green jersey tomorrow, and 7 from this morning's leader, Alejandro Valverde, who certainly will. No mountains tomorrow, so Omar Fraile is the king of them for the 2nd year running by a single point from Kenny Elissonde. So here's what the final mountain stage of this mountainous race has done to the standings. First, it's added 2 seconds to the margin by which Nairo Quintana has won it. Chris Froome now trails by 1:23. Esteban Chavez has secured 3rd by 13 seconds from Alberto Contador. Andrew Talansky stays 5th ahead of Simon Yates. David de la Cruz and Danny Moreno make it 3 home riders in the top 10. Davide Formolo is 9th, and George Bennett moves into the final top 10 as Michele Scarponi drops out of it. Now, it all got a bit military on the podium at the end. Nairo Quintana offered a salute as he donned the cap of the Spanish Air Force Eagle Patrol. The Eagle Patrol returned the favour with a fly past, and then, having won the war, he spoke about his battle with Chris Froome.
Hemos visto que es una batalla del tú a tú, que estábamos bastante parecidos de fuerzas. El día de la Uisque también ataqué bastante y él hizo lo mismo que yo hice hoy, iba a rueda y así, unos días yo, otros días él. La verdad que es el rival más directo a día de hoy y el rival más fuerte que tengo, y le felicito a él porque el día de ayer ha hecho una gran contrarreloj, me ha hecho sufrir bastante, pero al final lo he conseguido. Él me ha hecho sufrir en el Tour, él consiguió el Tour y ahora en esta ocasión he conseguido yo la Vuelta.